Well, this episode of Star Wars Rebels was called Idiot's Array, and it actually featured a surprise guest appearance. Now, I'll get to that in a second, but first of all, the plot is that Zeb is playing some kind of gambling game. I forget what it's called, but he runs onto credits, and seeing as the crew of the Ghost is short on credits, he bets Chopper, the droid. Except he loses to a familiar face, Lando from the original trilogy, the Billy D. Williams character. He's even voiced by Billy D. Williams here. So, in repayment of their debt to Lando, they agreed to transport some mysterious cargo that he needs to get to a certain planet, all the while evading this crime boss who Lando owes a debt to. So, that's the basic gist. While at the same time, some crew members of the Ghost react positively to Lando, while others just really don't trust him. They don't like him, and for good reason. I mean, he is kind of underhanded in this one, which again I will get to. But first of all, this was an episode that didn't really have a whole lot of ambition in terms of being one of the great dramatic episodes of the series thus far. It was meant to be fun. This episode wasn't really made in order to advance the overarching story of Ezra's Jedi training. This was meant to call back to a character from the original trilogy and, again, be fun. You were supposed to have fun while watching this, and I did have fun while watching this particular episode. Now, what did I like about it? Well, Billy D. Williams, he is freaking fantastic as Lando. I've always liked Billy D. Williams better than I liked Harrison Ford. He just has a lot more charisma. He's a better actor to boot, but that's another argument for another time. And he slips right back into the role of Lando. This is really a really good opportunity, a really good medium for him to reprise his role. Seeing as, some people might find it a little distracting how he and the rest of the cast members are significantly older than they were in the original trilogy. But here he can just utilize his voice. And that way the animators can actually make it look like the younger Billy D. Williams to again better reflect how the audiences remember him. And speaking of that, the character model for Lando was actually pretty good. It looked like Lando, which I was surprised considering how bad the Wookiees looked at the beginning of the show. I was actually surprised at how much I liked this version of Lando in terms of looks and in terms of performance, because like I said, Billy D. Williams, he has charm, he has smarm, he's very underhanded. He's a great deal more underhanded and double crossing here than he was in the original trilogy. The original trilogy, he double crosses them once. He's charismatic and charming once, and in Empire Strikes Back, and then for the rest of the time he's just kind of another ally for them. Here we actually get to see him work his magic as a sort of silver-tongued devil. So the fact that they did get Billy D. Williams definitely helps, because he does a lot of his own charisma and mannerisms are put into Lando, and for the most part, the animation reflects that and goes hand in hand with the voice. Now, another thing I liked about this episode was, again, the character interactions. This episode in particular, can be really funny, especially given the whole family dynamic on the Ghost ship. These characters really have good chemistry with each other. I like the interactions between them. I'm continuing to like the interactions between them. Although, if there's one recurring problem, not to go too broad, but if there's one recurring problem, is that I don't really think up to this point, we have gone deep enough into some of the characters' backstories. We kind of got a little of that with Sabine earlier in the season, in the episode with her and Hera. And Ezra, obviously, we've explored his character a little bit, but Zeb, Kanan, and Hera, we haven't really got much of in terms of their backstory and motivations, aside from, they've all lost something to the Empire and they are now part of a rebellion. Now, speaking of which, this really was sort of a Hera-centric episode, which I liked because it really gave A, Vanessa Marshall a chance to shine as a voice actor, and B, the character to really establish herself as the voice of reason, the stern motherly voice of reason, while at the same time proving herself as a valued member of the crew. Because no one can really fly this ship or invade Imperial patrols better than she can. And the fact that she knows that and is really determined with keeping her ship and its crew functional and systematic and working together as a team, and how, she thinks Lando is trying to sabotage that, I actually found kind of fascinating and a really likable aspect of her character. Now, one minor problem with that is that they got someone recognizable and such a recognizable and over-encompassing personality like Lando to guest star in what is essentially a Hera episode. The fact that they did get Lando and how he sometimes steals scenes straight from Hera, who is supposed to be the main character of this episode, does kind of undermine the nature of this episode as, again, a Hera episode. I was hoping we would get more time to spend with Hera, and we do get a significant amount of time, perhaps more time developing her character and her resourcefulness than we have in the entirety of the show thus far. But again, it seems like that time is divided between Hera and Lando. And if they had just waited to have Lando guest star on another episode, then maybe this episode would have felt a little more focused on one character, that character being Hera. I hope I'm making sense. In addition, there was another guest star, although not quite as prominent or as well advertised, in the form of James Hong as the mob boss who wants to collect a debt from Lando. And at first I said, okay, are they just going to typecast James Hong as this sleazy? Are they just going to have him do his character from Big Trouble in Little China? Not quite. He's not quite David Lopan. He's sort of David Lopan crossed with Jabba the Hutt, with a sprinkle of the Goblin King or the Great Goblin from the first Hobbit movie, is really the best way I can describe this guy. Again, not necessarily a menacing villain, and not someone who I'm thinking, wow, that was a great villain. Not even a great comedic villain. He was a functional villain for a more lighthearted episode. So yeah, getting back to the comedy, some of the comedy I really liked, and how this show isn't necessarily afraid to take risks with some of the Star Wars lore. During the ending fight, Ezra starts pulling out the custom-made lightsaber that he had, that's sort of in the shape of a cutlass, or almost like a pirate cutlass. It has this handguard. It's not your typical lightsaber shape, which I can already see several fans going like, oh my god, this is different, I don't like it. Although I haven't really heard as vehement a response to this lightsaber as I have with the big Scottish Claymore lightsaber from the Episode 7 trailer, but I digress. Ezra starts pulling out his lightsaber, and Kanan says, no lightsabers, we can't let them know that we have Jedi on board. And Ezra's like, relax. And he basically holds the lightsaber like a blaster and fires these. They look like these electromagnetic pulse blasts or something. They're these blue blast bolts, and Kanan's like, whoa, mine doesn't do that. So again, not only was that a funny exchange, but they're doing something new with the Star Wars mythos. Don't ask me how that particular piece of technology works. It could very well be BS, but again, it made for a pretty funny moment. So, yeah, this was an episode that I mostly enjoyed. The characters were very likable. I'm really liking a lot of the characters on the Ghost. I like their dynamic. Hopefully, we can go deeper into their personalities and motivations in the near future, so that this show can cross the line between very good and great. But yeah, for the most part, for an episode that really wanted me to have fun, it did accomplish its goal. I had fun. Thanks in part due to due to Billy D. Williams stepping comfortably back into the role of Lando and going for definitely a more comedic approach. It's nice that they're kind of varying up these episodes, not trying to go all dark or all lighthearted. So again, that's really all I got on this episode, and once again, thank God, I'm looking forward to the next one, which is a sign that the show is doing its job.